Good morning. First of all, thank you for the time, for the interest. So we are here this morning to listen about the experience of Professor Timothy. He is from Fresno, California, from the State University of California, and the vice director of a center that expert in entrepreneurship and innovation. So, and we have there a very interesting situation, a very interesting scenario about innovation and experiences and new companies, spin-offs and startups. Mainly happens with a close connection with the university. So this morning the idea is to learn to talk about this experience. I have here some professors, some students from the how to say this, is a junior company, yeah. There's a student companies from the university, and you have an opportunity to discuss a little bit about this experience, in mainly to know the opportunities of partnerships between the University of Fresno and Unicamp and the researchers here. Okay, so I give the word to the Professor Timothy to talk about his experiences. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I don't think I need this. My voice okay? A little bit easier. Well, thank you, and I very much have enjoyed my so far short visit here. The first time in this part of Brazil, so it's been very interesting, particularly to see what is going on campus as well. I'm learning a lot and trying to look at a lot of things, trying to get some insights. So hopefully we can share some. Here I can certainly tell you about some of the things I do. And as you'll see from my slide, I use this term called ecosystems from the biology. If you know anything about ecosystems, they're like little tide pools that are along the ocean, where each tide pool has its own certain unique resources, has its own activities, whether it's starfishes, whether it's all sorts of plankton, seaweed, or what have you. And if you think that metaphor about an ecosystem or a tide pool, we also think about communities as having a very similar type of situation. That is, every region throughout the world has its own resource basis, has its own culture, has its own development economically, has its own assets that make it unique. And I emphasize this uniqueness because oftentimes we find as communities seek for prosperity and universities evolve, they oftentimes want to look somewhere else and replicate it. And I think it's always important to think about you don't necessarily replicate, what you try to do is leverage the assets and resources you have to make yourself unique. And I guess probably the best example of that is Silicon Valley. Oh, I thought my voice was... is that better? I will do so. So let me just summarize briefly what I was talking about the notion of an ecosystem. An ecosystem is, in a biological metaphor, is a unique combination of resources, life, minerals, support. And when you apply that to the human experience, of course, we bring in culture and values. And this is one of the things we think about. So when we look at a place like Campinas, we look at a place like Fresno,
We look at a place like New York, we look at a place like Tokyo. Everyone has its unique way of organizing itself, developing its own resources, and evolving over time. What I know to be a fact is that there is no, what I call, imprinting of an ecosystem. There is no fixed destiny. That is, Campinas is not an area or an ecosystem that is required to be what it is today. There's nothing that is outside the control of the people who live there. So we as communities have the ability to evolve or change our situation. And it's the ability to change our situation and build the future which is very important. And that's probably what makes us a little bit different than the biological metaphor, is that we as actors are able to do so. So that's a little bit esoteric, so let me kind of bring that down to what I find of a great deal of interest. A little bit of my background. I started off as an engineer and did not do very well in engineering. Sometimes you have to discover where your talent is, and sometimes it becomes a rude awakening. In my effort to be an engineer, I did very poorly in the classroom and had to rethink what it is when I was 19 years old, what I really needed to do. I went to sociology, became very interested in the human experience. And from that, over time, I was able to get my doctorate in both sociology and business. So I have a joint degree. Both of those, you ask, well, those seem to be a little bit contrary, but they actually are not, particularly when you apply it to entrepreneurship. Because entrepreneurship, to me, is a phenomena that has multiple ways to be informed, from psychology, from sociology, from business, from economics, from a wide variety of perspectives that will allow us to understand who entrepreneurs are. I became interested in the entrepreneur while doing research at the University of Wisconsin. And in particular, I was intrigued with this people who would take a different path. People who would choose to follow something other than what society tends to guide them towards. People who come to a university, for example, are usually, I'm here because I want to get the education, the professional development, so a company will hire me, right? That's kind of why you come to college, is that you are trying to build your skill sets to make yourself more capable to enter into a profession that's going to be more rewarding than if you were to do so without a college degree. So entrepreneurs tend to take a little bit of different path even when they're in college. And so they have a different way of trying to think about how they're going to translate what they're going to do. The question is, why do some people elect to be an entrepreneur and some people do not? Long time ago, people used to say, well, entrepreneurs are born, they're not made. That somehow they had some genetic composition that made them different, but that is kind of a foolish thought. They're not born that way, just like accountants aren't born that way, just like engineers aren't born that way, just like food technologists are not born with a genetic makeup. Entrepreneurs are people who have different types of ambitions, they have different ways of thinking about what rewards them. And so I became very interested in why do people choose that path, as opposed to take a path that is much more traditional. And that brought me into doing a fair amount of research on the entrepreneurial experience. And there's a lot of things that go on for the entrepreneur. There are every society I've been to, there is always a segment of the population that pursues entrepreneurship. In fact, the most recent study here in Brazil is that about 17% of the population in Brazil is pursuing entrepreneurial efforts. In the United States, it's around 13%. The country that has the most entrepreneurial behaviors is Hong Kong. Some of the countries that have the least entrepreneurial behaviors are in Europe. For instance, if you go to Germany, entrepreneurship is not something that's as high in activity as in other countries. So we know that entrepreneurial behaviors differ in people who elect to do it. Some of it's based on economic conditions, some of it's based on political encouragement, some of it's based on support systems. So the support systems to me are very important. And what I had over time began to realize in studying entrepreneurs, that entrepreneurs more than anything else need to be able to tap into support systems that will allow them to continue on their journey, that will allow them to solve the problems they need to solve. Entrepreneurship is behavior that is problem-oriented, okay? I ask my students all the time when they're in the class, I teach a class of about 150 students, and the first day I always ask, how many of you like to solve problems? All the time. Not just once or twice, but every day. And if you're not a problem solver, or you don't like to solve problems, if you don't like to wake up every day and say, I have a big challenge, I've got to figure out how to get this done, entrepreneurship is not something you should pursue. Because in entrepreneurs, you have to thrive on solving problems. You have to find the problem unique and interesting, and a challenge, and the idea that it might not be solvable or you don't have the answer has to invigorate you to move forward. So that's a very important characteristic of the entrepreneur, and is probably one of the first places we begin to look for people who are inclined to be entrepreneurs as opposed to those who are not. We also know that entrepreneurs are people who have what we call an internal locus of control as opposed to an external locus of control. So this comes from psychology. And you can think about yourself in terms of your own orientation to the world. An internal locus of control says, I am responsible for the world around me. Everything that happens to me is a function of what I do and what I'm able to decide. External means that other people are influencing me. Other people are changing my destiny, or managing my destiny. So it's an issue about whether you assume responsibility or not. As a student, you know, the example is when you take an exam and you don't do well on the exam, whose fault is it? And I listen to students, and if they say, I should have studied harder, that wasn't a very good test, it didn't cover the material I thought it should, but I should have known that, I should have prepared for it, I'm the one who's responsible for not getting a good grade, as opposed to the professor's dumb. That professor's terrible, that professor doesn't teach well, and that's why I did poorly on the exam. So that's an external. That means someone else is determining my destiny. Okay, so so the entrepreneur is a person who believes that they can control their destiny, that the world around them is shaped by their approaches, by the things they do and what they try to solve. So again, these are characteristics that we all kind of bring into the world, and the things that are going to allow us to be more successful on an entrepreneurial journey or less successful. And so one of the things that we always do for our students is to do a lot of assessment. That is, where am I on this? How do I evaluate myself? What skills do I have? What is it that I need to improve on? And then how do I begin to start translating those into an entrepreneurial experience? So this became kind of an interesting question for me from the research side, is why some people chose to be entrepreneurs and why some people did not. And why some people would decide later in life to be an entrepreneur and why some people did not. Yesterday I met a young man who worked for a very large company, was a graduate from here, and he worked for this large corporation for about 15 years, making good money, was on the path of success professionally, and he quit the company. And he said, I just looked around me and there were so many things I could do myself that I didn't need the company to do it for me. That I saw opportunity that I could make money by building products or providing solutions that I saw in the industry, and he basically quit. And is now working in the incubator here to take on his own entrepreneurial pursuit, because he clearly wants to solve problems on his own. He wants to be able to pursue this entrepreneurial effort. One of the interesting things we find about entrepreneurs is a big reason why they become entrepreneurs is they don't like having other people tell them what to do. That is a boss. Okay. I mean, that actually is a very big factor for why people elect to be an entrepreneur. They feel they have the capabilities, they feel they have the intellectual ability to do things on their own without having other people tell them what to do. And so that becomes, again, a different type of orientation that entrepreneurs have in the world. I went to California State, Fresno, because as an academic or as a professor, I was interested in seeing if I could build an ecosystem after spending a great deal of my life studying this phenomena of entrepreneurship, to see whether I could build an ecosystem in a community that has some similarities to Campina. So, what is Fresno? Fresno is the 5th largest city in California. It is the California that many of you do not know, because California to you is Los Angeles, Silicon Valley, San Diego, the beaches, and everything else. That's not where Fresno is. Fresno is inland. It resides on the foots or at the bottom of the Sierra Nevada mountain range. Very majestic, very big, but it is basically on a desert, or almost desert. It used to be the sea floor, or it used to be ocean there, and when the ocean left, probably millions of years ago, it left some of the most fertile land in the world. And because of that fertility, it has now turned into the most productive land in the world for agriculture. Phenomenally the most productive land. We grow maybe 300 different crops, and they tend to be high value crops. We don't do much corn, we don't do much, no soybean. Everything is what we call stone fruits, peaches, plums, nectarines, and then a lot of nuts, almonds, walnuts, and then a whole host of vegetables, horticultural plants, so forth. And the whole landscape in our region is just simply farming with this very large city in the middle of it called Fresno. So we are a farm-oriented. That's one of our assets. That's part of our tide pool. That's part of our ecosystem, is agriculture. The university is predominantly an agriculture-oriented university. The university has 1,000 acres acres or hectares that are part of the university land. You can look out, and there it is, and it's a working farm for students. We are a university with a strong food technology program, because food obviously is something of great interest to her. We not only grow, but we also learn how to manage the food and how to improve the food processes as they come off the land and move into the marketplace. A lot of our food is shipped to places like Japan, where they pay a premium because of the high quality of the produce. And so there's a lot of money that can be achieved by farmers in that area. The other thing that is part of our ecosystem that is probably less here is water. As I mentioned, we're in the desert. Well, the question is, how do you have so much agricultural capability going on if you're in the desert? And the way it's done in California, which does not have much rain in general, is that we rely on this enormous mountain range for when storms come into the winter, that it puts snow up in the mountains, and that snow almost becomes like a reservoir for us. And then as it begins to melt, it's water that comes into the valley that is used for agriculture. When it does not snow, which it hasn't done to a large extent, except this year, but for the 4 years prior, we've been in a drought. This has raised very serious problems for agriculture. Many people in agriculture have had to remove their trees. They've had to allow a lot of that productivity to go fallow or not be in a production mode. And so out of this process of having to conserve water, we have also become one of the centers of the world for water technology. There are 3 centers in the world where water technology is a very big issue, where a lot of companies are formed. One is Fresno, the other is in Australia, and then the other is in Israel. And those are all 3 areas that have to be able to make productivity under very limited resources of water. So in the way we produce food, you will find water very conserved, managed, and a lot of technology applied to make sure that the water is maximized for what needs to be done with our food crops. So I bring up both food and water because I think it's interesting. It's interesting from the entrepreneurial side because it allows people who want to be entrepreneurs in our region to solve problems around food, particularly the management of farmland, which has become a big area, applying technologies to the point where we have now been able to convert, or in the process of converting land where very human labor is being engaged in terms of the picking of the food and so forth. It's very, through robots, computers, and a variety of things. It makes it a way to look at. And then, of course, around water. What's the value of water and food? And why is this important beyond what we do? Right now, there's about 6 billion people on Earth. By 2050, about 35 years from now, we will have about 10 billion people on Earth. What are the 2 things that are absolutely essential for a society to function? You have to have clean water. People have to be able to consume water. Imagine waking up every day and the water coming out of your tap you cannot drink. You cannot take a shower because of the contamination or the water is not pure. Imagine all your water sources has to come in a bottle. Imagine the water creating sickness. So you can imagine, if you are not able to provide clean water to a population, you have issues. The other one is food, which is quite obvious. If people are hungry, that's very difficult to keep a society thriving. So we know in our area that food and water are going to be very important in the future, and the technologies and the systems that we develop are going to be highly valuable for people around the world into the future. And so this has enabled a lot of young people or otherwise to start looking at that as an entrepreneurial effort. Just like in Silicon Valley, information technology, computers, and everything else is kind of their food and water, right? That's their food and water, and right now they are at a very high level of demand. Where we are in our ecosystem, we're at a lesser level, but we are going to be the future growth in food and water. And so you want to look at also in this region, well, what is our future destiny? What are the resources we have? That means that a place like Campinas is going to suddenly have the resources and be able to build out those resources through innovation that is going to be of value into the future. So this is what someone here who wants to be an entrepreneur is probably thinking, is what is it that I can identify that can be useful for the world tomorrow, understanding that this is going to be where the growth is going to be. So as a young person, these are the things you want to be able to think about, whether or not you're going to be an entrepreneur or whether you're going to work for a company, but you probably want to work for a company where you see that the problems you're going to be solving working there are going to be problems that are going to be significant for the future. And these are always some of those challenges that we work with. So let me, which is the, one of the things I found interesting, particularly in the United States considers itself to be the most entrepreneurial place. I said, you know, Hong Kong has more, but we think we embody entrepreneurship. We think our whole society was built on a value system about entrepreneurship. Maybe you've seen movies from the United States where we have cowboys and we have people crossing the frontier. I mean, just like you have people within the frontier, right? We're very similar, Brazil and the United States, in that we've got all of this enormous land that has not been settled. We settled much earlier. You have a lot more space to settle. But we cherish the cowboy in the sense that the value system, the independence, the willingness to go out and face uncertainty, to try to carve a destiny. This is why people immigrate to the United States, right? We tend to, what has made us successful is that people have looked at the United States and said, I have better opportunity there than I do in the country I'm in. And part of that is kind of this ethos or value system that emphasizes entrepreneurial behavior, that if you're an entrepreneur, you can come to the United States and succeed, that this will be one of the places that is very kind to you. Doesn't mean you won't fail, but at least you have a tremendous opportunity. And this is kind of the dream of the United States, or what we have always broadcast out. Yet, while we profess we love entrepreneurs, we want more of them, we want to attract them, we do not in our educational system provide entrepreneurial courses. So I oftentimes like to ask people, mainly to get them to think, is when did you have your first entrepreneurship course? When did I have my first entrepreneurship course? The first course I taught in entrepreneurship was my first entrepreneurship course. But it's always interesting to me that entrepreneurship wasn't built into our educational system. Why were students never informed until they got to college, and that's fairly recent, that entrepreneurship was an alternative for them on a career path? So a little bit about entrepreneurship and the way it has worked in the United States. 25 years ago, there was very little entrepreneurial coursework at the college level. Very little. It would be hard to find a college that had an entrepreneurship course in it. Today, every college, 2,500 colleges in the United States, every one of them has an entrepreneurship course. And most of them have majors. And most of them are building out entrepreneurs at the graduate level and the undergraduate as a pursuit of study. If we look at the high schools, probably 10 years ago, there was no entrepreneurship taught in the high schools. Today, we're finding that entrepreneurship is being taught in the high schools. So there has been a dramatic change in the way we, in the area of education, are building out an entrepreneurial knowledge base. Now, there's two reasons why you want to educate people around entrepreneurship. One is to let people evaluate whether or not this is something they should pursue. Society benefits from entrepreneurs. Society benefits from entrepreneurs. The next time you go into a Starbucks, if that's what you like, that's an entrepreneur. Take away entrepreneurs from a system, and you have a system that has no uniqueness, has no interesting restaurants, has no products that are different. You get the same thing. This is what entrepreneurs do. They enrich our lives. They give us more choices. They give us the things that we like, and when we don't find the things we like and we express it, pretty soon an entrepreneur will provide it. Here's an example. Not long after the Soviet Union collapsed, I went to the Soviet Union, became Russia, and I remember going through a shoe factory. And I turned to my colleague and I said, "This is the best shoe factory I've ever seen for 1932. The best shoe factory I'd ever seen for 1932. Because in a system where you eliminate entrepreneurs, you have a shoe factory that was created in 1932 producing the same shoe in 1988. Because there's no reason for them not to. There is nothing out in the market that is putting pressure on that to come up with a better shoe or a different shoe. And so you begin to realize that a system that does not support entrepreneurs is a system that has little innovation and basically is a system that's not going to thrive in a world economy. Because the world economy is built on innovation. And there is no system out there that can isolate itself from what goes on worldwide. We know this competitively, that markets are linked very closely, and it's those countries that are building an entrepreneurship culture are the ones who are going to be able to best translate the innovations. And innovations improve life. Not always. Overall, they improve life. If you don't think so, go back 100 years and look at how people lived. You know, without enough heat in the home, without enough food in many cases, without clothing, without a cell phone. Imagine that. People used to live without a cell phone. What would the world be like? Huh? I used to live in that world, and now my phone is with me all the time. I was telling someone last night, or maybe lunch. I go, it's amazing how this device has become an extension of us. It's not just a device. It's like our brain has been stored now. And our dependence on it is so high. And the example I always use is, if you were to leave home and you're halfway to school and I left my purse or my wallet at home, How many of you turn around and go back? No. Cell phone, I will turn around every time. That's right. I can't function. Someone may text me. It's there. Someone may send me an email. Someone may call me. And I can't sit there and just read it just when I'm bored. That is powerful. I remember the first time I saw a phone that was mobile was in 1990. I was in Hong Kong and I watched this gentleman with a big giant brick and a cord coming up with a big phone like this. He was carrying it. And I just sat there and watched him. I thought that was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. This person can walk down the street and talk to people. It's like pretty crazy. Well, yeah. And I know, and I occasionally run into people today who don't use a computer. I know people who don't have a cell phone. Yeah, that's almost worth an interview and trying to learn more, but people who don't have a cell phone. But that's a very rare thing. So one of the things that we want to continually think is about the value of education. And when I built an entrepreneurship program, we have a major, we have about 150 students. We're a campus of about 23,000. 150 of them are majors in the entrepreneurship program. Most of those students are not looking to go out and start a business, at least when they graduate. They may think about doing it later. Most of them want to go to companies and work in companies and use their entrepreneurial skills, because companies highly desire that. They desire hiring people who think about opportunity, who think about ways of solving problems. And one of the things that I try to share, and then we can look at this, is this notion of process versus project. Okay, so one of the things you may want to think about is work can be either process or it can be project. Process work is working where you are making sure the system runs smoothly. Okay? The system runs smoothly. So your work is designed to keep contributing to that process so it does not break down, that it has an outcome, a product that looks just like the product that was produced 5 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago, yesterday, so forth. That's a process. Pretty much 80% of all work is process. It's very important. Process means we get our goods at a lower price, and they're consistent. One of the things that made McDonald's so desirable, though many people will not see it as high quality food, but I know this: if I come to Campinas and buy a McDonald's, it'll taste just like a McDonald's in Fresno. It's a process. It has consistency to it. And that's why McDonald's are all over the place, because people look for that. And so they become very good at it. Project, on the other hand, is where you know what outcome you're trying to do, but you're not quite sure how you're going to do it. Okay? I know what the outcome is, but I'm not quite sure what to do. If you're asked to write a thesis or a report, you know what the outcome is. I need this report that's going to do this analysis, but I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to produce it. I could be an artist. I know what the vision is I want to communicate to the public, but I'm not quite sure how I'm going to capture that on a canvas. That's project work. Project work is problem solving. Project work is I know where I am, I know where I need to be, but I don't know what goes on in the middle. Process is I know where I am, I know what the outcome is, and I know everything that goes on in the middle. I can actually write a guideline. I can train people to be very efficient in the process because I know every minute what they should be doing. That's process work. So why is that distinction important? Well, let me give you an example. There are 3 things that are happening worldwide that are impacting work and the things we do. And I tell my students, you need to think seriously about these 3 phenomena because it's going to impact you based on the choices you make about the type of work you're going to do. And I always wind up telling them, in your future, go for project work. If you're in process work, here's the challenges you face. Process work is easily replaced by robots. Process work is easily replaced by robots. Okay, why do I need human labor if all they're going to do is engage in a pattern of behavior? And we're not talking about robots in terms of production lines. We're talking robots at every level, management levels and so forth. I remember in the United States we have people who do this because it's money and they don't have any other alternatives. They stand on corners and twirl signs. Pizza, pizza is designed to get you as a driver to suddenly say, oh, there's pizza over there. And if they're twirling the sign and I'm at a stoplight, I'll go, oh, okay. And it's effective, it's marketing. So one day I'm at this corner and there's always been this person over here twirling the sign, but I'm not looking, but there's something wrong here. And I look over and the sign is twirling and there's a human robot. This person's job was replaced by a robot, even as a simple sign twirler. The second phenomena that makes it difficult for in a process job is that computer technology is replacing particularly managers. The history of corporations is to collapse the middle of the company. You have executives up here, they won't be replaced. They're strategic thinkers, they're the ones who guide the company. You got people down here manufacturing, they're being replaced, many by robots. But in the middle were these things people called middle managers, whose job was to oversee the systems and make sure that they ran well. So they would monitor it. Well, now computers do that. You don't need large numbers of managers to oversee the work activities and monitor it. You need fewer and fewer. And those jobs have disappeared. So process work, computers and robots are rapidly replacing process work. The third form of process work, and I use this as an example for myself, is that there is someone in the world that will do exactly what you do, but cheaper. Okay? And the example I use for my students is, okay, I'm here teaching entrepreneurship. Why can't the university find someone in India who will work much less than I will, and they just come in on the screen and teach entrepreneurship? And they could do it through multiple campuses. Why do you need me? Much cheaper. If all I'm doing is teaching something that's consistent and repeatable and anyone can do it, you can find someone much cheaper to do. So when you have a job that someone else can do, you have to sit there and go, that's a problem. Project work is not replaceable. I'm the one who comes up with the solutions. I take on the problems. And that gives me protection in the job. So as long as I am solving problems or doing things in a creative way and using innovation as my tool, I can prevent myself from being substituted by someone who can do my work cheaper, and we know that's happened today. I don't know if this is the case in Brazil, but I know lawyers who do dictation. They send their dictation at 5 o'clock to India. People there take the dictation and make the notes, and by 8 in the morning, it is there for the lawyer, for everything that they've dictated. They used to have secretaries in their office who did this. But it's 20 cents versus $1, and they can do it in India, and they don't have to pay someone benefits. Okay, so this is the revolution that's going on. This is what is happening in the world. So again, entrepreneurs focus on project work. That's what they do. They use innovation as a tool. They see opportunities that others don't see. Others unwilling to go down that path. People who aren't willing to pursue problems because they don't like problems, or they don't want to, problems are messy and they withdraw from them. But it's the people who make that pursuit are the ones who are going to elevate or rise up and are going to be the force for change and are going to be the wealth generators, which they are now. If you look at the wealth being generated right now in Silicon Valley, because right now computers and IT is like, right now at the top, because the world values it, but it too will subside. It too will exhaust that form of innovation, and then other innovation will replace the demand for computers worldwide. Nothing stays forever. No technology is there permanently. But that is where the wealth is being created, enormous wealth. Almost ridiculous wealth. 26-year-olds becoming millionaires overnight. And a lot of them, because they happen to be working for a company that suddenly became very successful. And Silicon Valley is a very difficult place to live now because of the amount of wealth. But that's an ecosystem that's changed. Silicon Valley used to not be Silicon Valley. In fact, I lived there when it wasn't Silicon Valley. It was agriculture. San Jose was an agricultural place. It was a food processing. That's where the produce came in to be processed, put into cans and into jars. That was what San Jose was. Now San Jose is all about technological companies and IT. Again, an ecosystem's change. There's nothing that says this is your destiny in that particular situation. So again, that separation of the process of a project. So why do we need entrepreneurship education? Is it really just to make turn? Yes, we want people to become entrepreneurs. We know they add tremendous value, that this is where the jobs are created. In corporate America, from 1990 to 2000, one of the most historic economic booms ever. 1990 we were deep in a recession. In 2000, we were economically just booming. Wealth was, Silicon Valley was rising. Everything was going right in the US. Corporate America, from 1990 to the year 2000, created 0 jobs. The number of people employed in corporations in 1990 were the same number of people employed in corporations in 2000. How can that be? When they built this enormous wealth, but they didn't hire any extra people. How can that happen? One, computers. Computers actually have made things more productive. There were researchers for a while saying, I don't know if all of these computers are making companies more. Well, they have been. They've eliminated a lot of labor. What's the biggest cost in a corporation? In most corporations, it's labor. So let's think of it this way. I'm the CEO of a corporation. I want to be successful as CEO, right? So how do I be successful as a CEO? How do you be successful of a corporation? What do I need to do that makes my shareholders happy with me? Increase profits. How do I increase profits? Maybe. People are expensive. Okay. The way I increase profits is I look at my cost function. What's my number one cost function? It's labor, people. If I can have the same productivity with less work, labor expenses, I'm a hero. The motivation in corporations is to reduce the labor costs. That's the most expensive part. And still have the same level of productivity. And that's what corporate America did for those 10 years, and that's what they continue to do. And it's through the use of computers, robots, and everything else, is that they can actually increase their wealth, increase their productivity at a better cost ratio by reducing the labor component. So that's one way to think about. So where do the jobs come from? They come from the entrepreneur. What's the best thing, what's the proudest moment that an entrepreneur can have is when they hire people. When I hire someone, it means I'm growing. I am expanding. I can put more people. And that, at least in the United States, is where 90% of job growth comes from entrepreneurs. It doesn't come from the corporation. So again, it's a note of caution. As you begin to think about your career path, you want to think about where are the jobs going to be and how do I protect myself so I'm not finding myself going from a job every 5 years because of the changes going on in a large company. So these are some of the challenges, are the ways we think about. And again, it's why we focus on building innovation skills and understanding opportunity around those innovation skills. You can join a corporation and thrive and succeed, but you had better have project-oriented skills. Don't find yourself in process. I tell anyone who's doing process, you've got 3 or 4 years, and then you're going to have to go find another job. Because you're easily replaced. You're vulnerable in the workforce. And you will be looked upon as a cost function and not as a value-added function. Project work is value-added. Process work is cost. Okay, is another way to think about the equation. So what we have built in our program, our entrepreneurship program, is a focus on skills. So I don't tell students they need to go out and start a business. That's great. I love it if you do. But we focus on building skills. Because quite honestly, just like this young man I met yesterday, he was a student. He was a chemical engineer graduate. He worked in very successful corporations, and at 35 he left to be an entrepreneur. What we look to do, or what we recognize, is that most people who become entrepreneurs do so in their 30s. They don't do it in their 20s. Because when you're in your 20s, you tend not to have a lot of knowledge about the way industry operates. And that knowledge about the way industry operates, by experiencing it, is where you learn opportunities and understand where customers are not getting problems solved, that you have the opportunity to solve it. Large companies like to solve problems that are very massive. That is, they cut across large markets. If there is only a small number of customers who want that problem solved, they tend to ignore it. It's not worth it. You know, if they're not going to make $100 million a year by solving this problem, they're not going to do it. I remember talking to an individual in the medical field, and he was building out a company. It was a medical device, and he said, well, the corporation I was working for, I told them, here's how we solve this problem in the medical field, but they looked at it and they say, well, that will work, but it only makes $10 million a year. And we don't do products that only make $10 million a year. And he said, I'll do $10 million a year, that's good money. And so he got the rights from the company to go off and create his company, and so he's being able to build it. Entrepreneurs don't need to do. They only need to find small areas where they can sell because they can do it in a very efficient way. They don't have all the overhead of a large corporation that they have to pay for. They have a small amount of overhead, and so they're more able to do that. So that's one of the rules of entrepreneurship. So we teach skills. There's 5 skills we focus on. Vision. You have to know where you're going. People who are successful in life have a vision. They can identify and think about where they're going to be in 5 years. Athletes have a vision. Successful athletes are those who see themselves succeeding. When they go to the Olympics, they see themselves crossing the finish line. They see themselves coming in first swimming. Golfers see the ball going down the fairway before they swing. So the whole concept of vision to me is absolutely essential. It's essential whether you're an entrepreneur or not, right? You should have a vision about where you're going to be 5 years from now. You should see yourself in the work you're doing. And so when you wake up every day, you understand what you're trying to accomplish. It allows you to make choices. It allows you to decide whether to go over here and hang out with your friends or go to the library and do the work. Which one is going to help me get to that vision? And you have to ask yourself, if you have no vision, who cares what you do? Just do whatever you feel like doing. You know, it's the old saying, if you don't know where you're going, any path will get you there. And a lot of people in life just kind of wander through life and hoping that something good is going to happen. But it's not a very good strategy. So for the entrepreneur who has to solve a lot of problems, they have to have a vision. If you've seen the movie or read the book, Lord of the Rings, what was it that, I'm trying to think of his name quickly. Who was the key? Yeah, thank you, Frodo. Frodo. He was sitting there, and this made the whole story. He knew where he was. He knew what he had to do. He had to destroy the ring. He had the vision. But he had no idea how he was going to get there, to the volcano. No idea. And that's the story, right? That's like the entrepreneur. I know I got to do that, but I got to walk through the woods, and I'm going to run into a lot of problems here, and I hope I can solve them. Right? So that's kind of that notion of vision. You need leadership. When you're the entrepreneur, you are the person who makes things happen. But leadership is not telling people what to do. That's failed leadership. Anytime you have to tell someone what to do who's working around you, that means you have not been able to effectively communicate to them. They should know, based on your leadership, what's important and how they're going to get things done. When you have to tell someone what to do because they're not doing what they're supposed to do, that's failed leadership. You always remember that. Leadership is when people willingly do or make a contribution to what you're trying to do. People willingly make a contribution. That's leadership. Because they believe in you. They believe in your integrity. They believe in your vision. That's how you get people willing to commit to what you're trying to accomplish, because they believe in your vision and they want to be a contributor to that vision. That's leadership. The third thing is you need to be able to sell, or what we call pitch. You need to be able to articulate the vision. It's not useful if I have a vision, but I can't let other people know what it is, because other people are going to have to understand it to make a contribution to it, or to choose not to make a contribution. So the ability to articulate. So as an entrepreneur, you want to be able to always stand up and be able to express. In our whole curriculum, every course, students constantly have to stand up and articulate their vision. It's just part of the training we do. And one of the things that people dislike the most, the biggest phobia or fear, is public speaking, right? That is the biggest phobia or fear. When I was the age of many of you young people, I hated it, I couldn't do it, and I just had to learn how to do it. It took a lot of time to be able to overcome that fear. But if you have clarity in your vision, it's much easier, because you know what to say. The fear we have is that we're not sure what it is that we're going to say or how we're going to say it, because we don't have clarity in our vision. Once you have clarity in your vision, you know how to stand up and communicate it. But you have to practice it. You have to do it over and over. So as the entrepreneur, I need to be around people to let them know what I'm doing so they can help me solve my problems. And my problems get solved through networking. Building connections with people who can contribute to me. Connecting with people who can add value to my effort, who can have the resources that'll help me solve my problem. So I have to be able to articulate what I'm trying to do. I have to be able to identify the problems I'm solving and hopefully find someone. And network is interesting. So I could be having a conversation with Ricardo, and I say, well, I'm trying to build this business, but I need to find a supplier who does parts for oil rigging, and I'm having problems with it. He knows nothing about oil or any of that stuff. But I articulate to him, and all of a sudden he goes, you know what? My uncle does that. Oh, really? Yeah, let me give you his number. Or I know a professor on campus who knows that. So while he himself can't solve the problem, if he's part of my network and I'm able to let him know, articulate what it is that I'm trying to accomplish, he may help me. He may be someone who's very critical in there. In sociology, there's this phenomena called the 6 degrees of separation. Someone made a movie out of this. And with Facebook and social media, we're down to about 1 degree of separation, or 2, 1.5. But this was a study, and this was how it was done. This is back in the 1960s. A bunch of sociologists wanted to know how much connectivity people had in the US. Remember, this is before cell phones, this is before the internet. There was a time when that occurred. Huh? Yeah. Exactly. They went to people and they gave them a letter and said, here's an address in somewhere in the country. Yeah. And said, I want you to get that letter to this person, but the only way you could get that letter to that person, you have to give it to someone you know, who had to give it to someone they know, and get to someone they know, and tell someone, oh, I know this person, and we give the letter. 6 degrees. It took 6 on average to get to that person. Think about this. In the 1960s, all it said was, we are very interconnected, even though at that time we did not have a lot of devices to connect us, but we were actually fairly connected as a society. So, when I communicate to Ricardo, I'm looking for someone, I'm trying to tap into his network. And everyone has a network. Everyone knows something, and if he doesn't know what I need, or he may choose not to let me know, if he knows, he will tap into his network and to help me out. So networking is very important. The concept of birds of a feather flock together. Have you heard that? Birds of a feather flock together. Pigeons like to be around pigeons. Eagles like to be around eagles. Birds of a feather flock together. Humans like to be around people just like them. The same values, the same orientation to life. I tell my students that I can know everything about you that I need to know without ever talking to you. Just give me the names of 4 friends, and I won't even ask your friends about you. I will ask what their values are. I will ask what they think about life. I'll ask where they're going, and I will pretty much know about you. Pretty scary, huh? But it's true. So I tell my students, you want to be an entrepreneur? You hang around people who want to be an entrepreneur. You want to be a famous football player? You hang around people who want to be famous football players. You want to be a drug seller? You hang around people who are drug sellers. That's how you accomplish. You build the networks. So again, if you're hanging around people who sell drugs, yeah, that's pretty much what you're going to be doing or planning to do, right? Because birds of a feather flock together. Networking. And finally is team building. Entrepreneurs have to build teams. There's a myth out there that entrepreneurs do things independently and disconnected from other people, that somehow they're lone people. Everything they do is on their, that's absolutely not the way you can do it. As an entrepreneur, you need to build a team. You need to have people around you who can support and contribute to your effort. The mistake an entrepreneur will make, or anyone will make, in building that team around them is they oftentimes select people who are less talented than them. The key to building a team is you want people there who have more talent and are smarter than you. If I build a team of 5 people, I want everyone in there smarter than me. That's a great team, right? So think about it this way. When you go listen to an orchestra playing music, who's the worst musician in the orchestra? The maestro, the conductor. If they're great at the flute, why aren't they playing the flute? Why would they have someone else who's not as good as them play the flute? They are the worst musician in the room, or they should be. But they make the music. They know how to organize the team to come out with this beautiful sound. But they're not the best musician. That's the entrepreneur. I want everyone around me to be smarter and clever and better than me. I just orchestrate this. Okay? Mark Zuckerberg, and there's a video, it's up on the Stanford website, was interviewed right after he got to Silicon Valley. Had his hoodie on, so and this is when Facebook was barely, not too many people knew what Facebook was. But he had moved to Silicon Valley, dropped out of Harvard, came there to get venture capital, to build out this company. And he was on video at Stanford, and he was talking about the challenges and the problems. He said, the most important thing for me is to find the smartest people I can. I know nothing about coding. I don't know how to do, I can do a little of it, but I'm not really good at that. I'm not very good at finances. I'm not very good at marketing. I'm not very good at this. And he went down, he goes, my challenge right now is to just find the best people I can. I need to be the dumbest person in the room. Okay? That's the challenge of the entrepreneur. You need to be the dumbest person in the room. Those are the 5 skills that are essential. But I want you to step back now and think about those 5 skills. Those are essential for the entrepreneur, but to be honest, they're essential for success in life. It's not just entrepreneurs. I talk about it in the entrepreneurial experience, but think about it from your own experience, being a non-entrepreneur, for instance. Those same skills, anyone I look at successful in life, those are the skills that people build. And they build it constantly throughout their life. It's not, I'm going to spend 2 years building it. No. It's something that continually has to be built and perfected all the way. That's what leads to success. It doesn't guarantee it, but it will improve your chances the more you build those skills. So think of skills this way, in the way I talk about for entrepreneurs. Think about the first time you had to learn how to swim. Does everyone know how to swim? Everyone learned to swim? Most people do. How many of you got thrown into the pool? Who did that? Someone just threw you in the pool and said, good luck? Oh my God, you still talk to your father? Oh, okay. So, how many of you went to...
Not an excuse, but my father just learned to swim just like that.
Yeah, I will, in every audience I have, I ask that question, I will always find one or two people who just got thrown in the pool. Okay, think about that. And this is a good metaphor. How many of you went to classes where you had teachers and you kind of got your elbow in and put your face in? Anyone do that? Yeah, that's the way I learned how to swim. When you were thrown in the pool and when you were in that class, what were you doing if you were a child? You were screaming. You were screaming. I'm going to die. I'm going to get no water up my nose. If you got water up your nose, it's like... But it's interesting about swimming. Same with bicycles. If I can give you 3 skills, you can survive swimming. You need to learn how to float. If you can't float, it's not good. You need to be able to paddle. You can't just stay in one spot. And you need to be able to hold your breath and not have water come up your nose and in your mouth. If I can teach you those 3 things, you can swim. Are you going to go to the Olympics? No. Just survive. Okay, so if I teach you that, and you can now do those 3 things, and you climb out of the pool, and you say, I'm never going to swim again, and walk away, but 10 years later, you decide, I am going to swim. You can get back on your own. You don't need anyone to show you how to do it. Okay? Same with riding a bicycle. Once you've learned to ride the bicycle, you can not ride it, and then suddenly you get back on. You're not going to be great at it, but you can do it. The same thing with entrepreneurship. If I can teach you those skills, and you say, I don't want to be an entrepreneur, but 5 years later, 10 years later, you suddenly find out that I think I do want to be an entrepreneur. You have the skills. So in our program, that's what we do. We teach the skills, knowing that there is a time in life that you may decide to be an entrepreneur and that you've already ridden the bicycle. You're not having to be thrown into the pool. Many people who become entrepreneurs are thrown into the pool and they're terrified, and that's their first time, and the probabilities of success are lowered because you're having to learn a lot very quickly. And the chances of not coming up with the right solution is very high. I'm sure your father was ready to jump in, at least I hope he was. Thank you for not. Water is very terrifying, for people. So again, think about that in terms of how you begin to incorporating entrepreneurship and innovation into your thinking. This is what's critical. We need more entrepreneurs, there's no doubt about it. Trying to be the dumbest person in the room may not be what you want. It's very complicated to put a team together, to be the person with the vision. It's a challenge. And not everyone is willing to do that. But entrepreneurs need team players. And if you have built your innovation skills and you've built your entrepreneurial skills, the opportunity to work with an entrepreneur is increased greatly. And they need people like you. But they need you understanding why and what they're doing and what this entrepreneurial experience is. So the opportunity, I don't want to be the dog in the front, but I want to be part of the team that's going to pull the sled. Because I find this more interesting. I find it more exciting. I find it something where, this chance to be successful in a place where I'm not doing process work is more interesting. One of our students, Joy Covey, graduated from Fresno State back in the 90s. She then went to Harvard and got an MBA. You get an MBA out of Harvard, you're ready for corporate America and you're going to go up pretty high. But she chose not to. She ran into someone who really intrigued her. And it was an entrepreneur in Seattle, Washington, who had this idea that he wanted to take and use this thing called the internet and to sell goods over the internet. And he didn't want to just sell books, which is the first thing he started to sell. He wanted to sell everything. And he called it Amazon. And he chose the name Amazon because it was the largest river and it expressed, I want to do it all. Everything. Groceries, everything. But he chose books because there was a lot of them. And the price was low, $10. And at that time, believe it or not, people on the internet were very nervous about putting their credit card in. Oh no. But his view was with books, if they were $10, people might take, I lose $10. Somehow this guy took $10. It's not like $600. Later on, when airlines began to take credit cards, people got more comfortable with it. And now people do it all the time without thinking, right? You just buy stuff. She joined him. She was like the 7th person to be hired. She's 26 years old. And was asked, take over, I need someone to do our production system. Well, I've never done that before. Yeah, neither have I. But you're smart. Go figure it out. And so she began to learn logistics. Huh? Yeah, and find out. This is the way entrepreneur startups are. Yeah, I don't care. You go figure it out. That's the fun part of it, right? Is like you get to do things. Well, she left Amazon 9 years later with $140 million based on the stock she got. Because in startup companies, the way you give people small salaries, but then you give them equity. And of course, as the shares grow, that's how she did. And she retired at about the age of 36. And then became someone who invested in other entrepreneurs. But again, that was a risk. Couldn't predict it. No one could predict that Amazon was going to be what it is. Jeff Bezos, actually in the early days, to get the money, he talked his parents into putting a mortgage on their home for $125,000. So his parents were like, if this doesn't work out, we're going to lose our home. A little bit of pressure there. But he was able to be successful with that. Why was she able to do that? Because she had the entrepreneurial skills. She had innovative thinking, but she did not want to go out and start a company. Yeah. But risk willing to do. When you're young is when you want to take the risk, by the way, right? Yeah. You have very little to lose. Except time. Me, I have a lot to lose. How am I going to pay my mortgage? How am I going to make sure my kids get through college? All that stuff. So the older you get, the more the opportunity to be an entrepreneur lessens because of the risk factor. You get more ensconced into the system, and you become more and more incapable of doing. Unless you get fired from your job, then you have to sit there and go, oh, okay, I got to do something here. But that's not the circumstances you want to be an entrepreneur. Those are the worst times when you are forced to be an entrepreneur. Very low success rate on people who are forced to be entrepreneurs. Success rate is mostly fine. So, again, what is the value of an entrepreneurial education? One, it builds skills that lead to life success, whether you be an entrepreneur or not. Two, it gives you a chance to understand innovation and how you can use innovation to solve problems. Three, it puts you into project work, or gets you focused on projects rather than process. And process work isn't going to be sustainable. I'm telling you right now, don't go towards process work. Make sure you're on the project side. And fourth, the value you add to society is tremendous. And that usually is the bottom line. The most important thing for an entrepreneur, I find, it's not the money. It's nice to have money. But you talk to an entrepreneur and they say, this is how they see money. Money is the way I measure my success. I don't need the money. I'm busy doing other things. But I measure success. That just affirms that when I had this idea in my head and I thought people would like it and I did everything I could to make this happen, not knowing whether it was going to work, taking all the risks, that money affirms that I made the right choices. And that what I had in my head and I could create worked. And it's that creation which is very important to all humans. What makes humans different from every other species on the planet, what makes humans different from every other species on the planet, is that humans have this innate desire to create. Dogs don't have a desire to create. Cows don't have a desire to create. Plants don't have a desire to create. Humans have, for whatever reason, Maslow talks about it in its hierarchy, self-actualization. We have in us a desire to create, and it gets expressed in many ways. Some people cook. They like to go in and cook. They are creating something. They like to try different things. They don't want to do the same thing. They're not into the process of just making the same meal all the time. They want to try different things. They are creating. It is part of the human nature and experience that allows us to be human. Some of us paint. Some of us create furniture out in our garage. Some of us create businesses. Okay? You have to think about your human experience, about this notion of creation. When I find people unhappy in life, you know why I find out in many cases why they're unhappy? They have no outlet for their creativity. They are not doing anything that allows them to be creative. It's a human experience that they have to be fulfilled, to have a sense, to have that human experience. So again, the entrepreneurial side, when I create a business, I'm creating something that's an extension of me. It embodies my values. It embodies what I believe in. It embodies what I think is a contribution to society. Just like as an artist, my painting embodies my values. It embodies what I believe in, and I see it as a contribution to society. That's where the magic is. That's where the magic of life is. So, when we think about the entrepreneurial experience and the importance of it, build part of that in your life, whatever you're going to do. Certainly what I would like to see here is entrepreneurship courses. And for students to come in and experience, to start at least finding the ingredients that they can bring into their own thinking, not to change their career path or their direction, but to use it as a tool to add value to them so that they can later add value to others. So let me stop there, because as a professor, I talk. And I probably talk too much. Any questions or anything?
Before the question, I would like to talk a little bit about more and this project or our project. I think that it's necessary to, first of all, to get the concepts that Professor Timothy gave us to understand our moment, the moment that we are living today. So today we are working, and when I say we're talking about Unicamp, some institutes, some schools, some professors. We are talking about Instituto Agronômico de Campinas, we are talking about Instituto de Tecnologia de Alimentos, Instituto Biológico, Instituto de Zootecnia, Tecnopark, Prefeitura de Campinas, Campinas Government, and let me see, São Paulo Government, FAPESP, and so on. We are working to build a project called Agropolo. The idea of Agropolo, or the idea of this project, is to build an agriculture ecosystem. So it means to build a fruitful environment to stimulate, to create, to improve, to maximize the networking between private companies, universities, and governments. This is the main idea. So we have a project, as Professor Timothy said, we have a project, we know where we are, and we have a vision. And we identify, we understand that Campinas is a fruitful place, a fruitful city, a fruitful region that can be part of this, okay? So we are we are working to build this project, and Professor Timothy probably is part of this project. So we are understanding, we are going to visit some good experiences in other countries, in Europe, in France, and the United States. We are trying to learn, to get good experiences and bad experiences to build our process. Yeah? We don't know today, we don't know how we'll achieve the target. So this is the idea, but we need to build this time. So this is the idea. So this is our first job. So we are working, we are discussing, we are involving different students, different professors, different schools. So this is the idea today. This is the main objective of the Professor Timothy to be here today. Tomorrow we will be realize an international seminar about business and agribusiness in AgriShow, Ribeirão Preto. All of you are invited, if it's possible, okay? From 9 o'clock to 5 o'clock. There we will have a lot of people from Unicamp spin-offs, from agriculture, private companies. We have a new presentation of Professor Timothy and Professor Cleveland from the California. Will give us the opportunity to know a little bit more about the experiences in Sacramento. That is from Sacramento. Okay, so I think that is a necessary speech about our project to you. Understand the context, to understand our vision and the reasons of this meeting. Okay, so before the question, I would like to give a presentation of which to talk about the name and the
Hi, my name is Marcelo. I'm a professor from the Institute of Biology. I work with plant biotechnology, and we have some courses in entrepreneurship in the Biology Institute. And I totally agree with you that most of the students, they do not have any contact with this kind of lectures in our university as well. And there's a huge number of students that they are willing to get more knowledge on the opportunities to create companies here in Campinas, and our university has several opportunities, but the students, they don't know. Yeah.
My name is Felix Reyes. I am professor of food toxicology here at the School of Food Engineering. Well, my interest is related to innovation in the field of food safety and environmental safety as well. That's why I'm here today. Yes, exactly.
Good morning. My name is Glenn. I'm an agronomist. I work in a research center at Unicamp with medicinal and aromatic plants. I'm the curator of the plant collection. And we have some experience in research and development of phytomedicines.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Nicholas. I'm a student. I'm from agricultural engineering, and I'm director at Agrologica company. We are a junior company, and I'd like to say thank you. Have a great time. It was a great speech, and for sure we're going to take this for our workers in Agrologica. Thank you.
And good morning, everyone. My name is Diego. I am the president of Agrologica, the junior company. I'm a student of agricultural engineering. And I thank for the speech today, because it's what we work in Agrologica, work in the junior company movement here in Unicamp to build the entrepreneurship in the students. It's something that we love to do, it's something that we dedicated to do. So thank you for today.
Hi, my name is Raquel, and I work for the Institute of Biology International Office. And also, I represent our extension as a secretary of our extensions courses. So this is what we would like to offer more at Institute of Biology.
Good morning. My name is Rafael. I'm from food engineering student, and I am the president of JPEA. It's a junior company too, and I like to thank you because we participate of a junior entrepreneur movement with all junior companies, and it's really amazing to see your speech about entrepreneurship.
I'm Paulo, and just as Rafael, I'm a director of JPEA, and just as them, I would like to thank you for your speech. It was awesome to see how big the enterprises entrepreneurship can be, and I'm another graduate too. We have low contact with this, and in junior enterprise movement, we have too much people talking about it, and we don't see how it is in reality. We see we have a lot of contact with this. We run a company. We get high levels in our company, but it's not. It's a different level. It's a different vision. It's a different way to run a company in the reality, and it instigates it. Increase our wishes, our will to open our business and make the difference in our countries, and that's it. I would like to thank you again, and just that. They are undergraduate too. They are of the stage commission. They the State Commission works to bring to approximate companies to the students, so we can have more opportunities of work, more opportunities of development. So we have some materials of entrepreneurship too, but it's more how can I say? It's more for development, professional development. So some skills that is used in companies as an employee. It's not much as entrepreneur, but they make a good work too. She's Mariana and Marielle.
Hi, my name is Cristiano. I'm an agronomist with master in economics and PhD in business administration, all of them in University of São Paulo and part in Virginia Tech. And I work with entrepreneurship since 1992 when I found me and my friends Exalc Junior Consultoria long years ago. And here I am a professor of marketing professor at the University of Campinas, but campus, Limeira campus. And I teach marketing and entrepreneurship in agribusiness. And I work with marketing since 1999 when I have my first job in Hawaii in a tomato farm. So I think your speech was very good.
Well, now if you have some question, feel free. I think that we had time for this.
Thank you. Well, since I was the last one to arrive, I will be the first one to make a question. First of all, please apologize me because I arrived late. Due to two reasons. One, that I received this invitation late afternoon, and I already had an appointment with my medical doctor this morning. Then, if you listen a kind of a noise from myself, it doesn't mean that I am a bomberman. It means that I'm using a device to control the blood pressure or to measure the blood pressure. You okay? In the invitation that I received, there are a few words that were important and attached my attention. One of them was innovation in the agribusiness. The other one, it was that you are in association with the UC Davis.
Not me.
Or that, not you, or somebody, it was mentioned here that you conduct activities in association with UC Davis and California State Universities. I don't know whom, but and that is why I am here. That attached my attention because we are trying to develop some research activities with UC Davis. Last year, at the end of last year, I was at UC Davis, and I had the opportunity to have a meeting with the professor Timothy Young. He's from the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering. And we discovered that we have some kind of contribution, mutual contribution in the areas that we work. My vision, since we are talking to vision, is to contribute to Brazil to become one of the main exporter of fish and fish products. Okay? Fish is a very nutritious food. It's an excellent food commodity. And according to FAO, Brazil has the conditions to be one of the largest fish and fish products exporter. Okay? But at this moment, we import more than export. Okay? the largest exporter is China. But we had the conditions, and Brazil started, this area of fish farming since the beginning of this century. That means 15 years ago. A lot of things need to be done, Fish farming is a very complicated activity, Fish are very delicate species. And fish farming is one of the most pollutant activities in producing protein from animals, animal proteins, okay? And in that area, what we intend to contribute is a very, very small part, because a lot of things need to be done. But our contribution is related to the area of food safety, okay? The kind of pharmaceutical or veterinary drugs to be used to control, the illness in fish. Because when you have a lot of animals, together, if one becomes ill, then the other becomes as well. And fish are in a very, sometimes very polluted environment, water, and to treat the fish is not easy, because you have to treat only to the food that you provide them, okay? And in Brazil, we do not have too many veterinary drugs approved for treating the fish. Then this is one area that needs to be explored, to test drugs that will not impact the environment and will not leave residues that will represent a risk to the consumer's health, okay? And that's why, with UC Davis, with Professor Timothy, we found a lot of opportunities of collaboration because he is in the environmental safety area, okay? And that is what, and for that reason, we try to prepare a kind of summary project to work in this area. I don't know if you are interested in this area, if something is attract your attention, because also attracted my attention that who is Professor Parastu Jamagi? Are you?
She was unable.
Okay, because he is from the RF Biocides. Okay, then I thought maybe, okay, biocidic, we are dealing with, some compounds that has that kind of activity as well. I don't know if you have any kind of suggestion, any kind of recommendation, how to improve this collaboration between the two institutions, Unicamp and UC Davis, or our two groups, research groups, I'm not aware if you are in this.
The professor from Davis, the one you mentioned, or another one is going to be, or is coming. I don't work a lot with UC Davis. We're very similar campuses. We're both considered to be the agricultural campuses in California. We're both very focused on agriculture. I know we don't work in the area of fish. I'm not sure UC Davis does as well, but they may. But certainly there are some areas in there. Early on in my presentation, I talked about the two things that are going to emerge that's going to be very important to the world and is going to demand a lot of innovation and entrepreneurial behaviors, and that's water and food. Brazil, U.S. are countries that eat a lot of meat. But to be honest, meat is very inefficient in terms of what it takes to produce, whereas fish is much more efficient. And as the world is going to double in population, clearly we can't, feed people protein based on meats. So, or at least red meat's in there. So fish is going to keep increasing. The problem is, fish is also being reduced in its supplies. So farming has become pretty critical, and there's going to need to be a lot more in there. And I know Brazil does not have a large-scale amount of fishing that goes on, but that to me just means there's an opportunity. Again, as the populations expand and people need that protein, and the inefficiencies of red meat are going to make it difficult to provide that, fish is going to be probably a much more efficient substitute for that. How you go about raising fish and doing that, I don't know. It is complicated, and it does take a lot of issues around safety, because fish are vulnerable when they're put into cages and farmed. I mean, there's a lot of things that can happen that won't happen out in the wild part of the ocean. But I would certainly try to keep that conversation going. And I don't know, where the expertise is in the United States around fishery. I'm drawing a blank. Usually I can have, but there are some schools, I would assume, that actually have a lot of development. I imagine they're either on the Gulf Coast or in the Pacific Northwest, perhaps. I don't know about Davis. Most of their agricultural food area is off the land. I mean, that's their expertise. But again, you may have some fishery in there as well. I don't know. But good luck with that.
Thank you.
Tim, here as you see in the audience, we have several students associations, right? You have this junior enterprise that they deal with companies and interact with companies and so on. In your case, in your center, how do you interact with these students associations? I mean, how they can profit, or how they can cooperate with your efforts in teaching entrepreneurship?
One of my, I think it's perhaps my most successful program, and the one I treasure the most, that's why I think it's the most successful, is what I call a mentor program. It's by application. Students get credit, but they have to commit to 1 year of being part of the program. And that commitment means every Friday from 12 to 3 o'clock, they have to be in the classroom, engaged in what I call professional development around entrepreneurial perspectives and growth. Every student is assigned 1 or 2 mentors. They're leaders in the community, people who've committed to meet with the student minimally once every 2 weeks, ideally every week. Not to tell them how to start a business, but to talk to them about their professional development. I don't know about other people in here. I attribute my success in life, what I have had success, is because I had mentors. I had people who cared about me. They weren't part of my family. They care about me, but family gives you different information than someone who learns about you and tries to give you advice on how to guide and navigate through life. And I've been doing this for 10 years. I have 40 mentors. I only take 20 students in the program. But I have 40 community leaders who will work with those students, just being able to help them with their vision, give them some thoughts about the things that they are going to need to think about professionally and the way they're going to navigate life. Those 20 students are not, I get them from every major. I get them from engineering. I get them from food science. I get them from anthropology. That doesn't matter to me. The only requirement I have is that they have a commitment to build innovation and entrepreneurship into their professional development. So I have one person who's a Navy pilot. That's probably not the best approach for being innovative and entrepreneurial, but nonetheless, a lot of his success has been built on that professional development, and that is something that at this stage in life he wanted to pursue. The value of this to me is that it's a very deep connection with industry. Industry comes in, leaders out of business come in and work with students in a very close way, one-on-one, imparting their knowledge, bringing them into their business to learn more about their business, giving them insights into their industry. You cannot, at the age of 20, ever get that in any other format, or have a system that provides that. We all came, through ways where we were fortunate to find mentors, but that was more like serendipity or ran across someone. Here we're actually building them in. And those mentors will still, 6-10 years later, be communicating with those students because they built a bond. The other thing the mentors do, which I think is very good, they have incredible networks. The student says, I'm trying to find out someone, out Los Angeles, or I'm looking for a job, or let me call someone. I know someone there. And make those introductions. That's very powerful. Normally, to build a network at that level would take you 10 years. If you walked into a community and said, I want to build a network of 40 people who are going to open doors for me, it'd take you 10 years. You'd have to join the Rotaries, the chambers. You'd have to go to a lot of social functions. You'd have to continually let people know your value. Here, it's instantaneous. So that to me is important. And on the other side of it, the mentors love it. I jokingly say their children won't listen to them. That's just dad or mom talking about their experiences. Kids never want to hear about their parents. They always want, parents tell them to do something, they ignore it, but someone else tells them it, and it's like, it's really valuable information. That's just being young. So they like it because they can actually talk to someone and take what they think is a life experience that's important and impart it to someone and hopefully improve what they're doing. So that's not a direct industry collaboration with it, but it certainly is one that I find has led to a lot of other openings for the program and builds a stature for the program. That's also important. Interestingly enough, I don't really recruit mentors. Mentors find out from it from people involved, and then they say, I want to be part of that. They also want to give back and be in that particular thing. So that to me is one of the bridges that's the most significant one we have. And the impact and value for students is tremendous. It's just been tremendous. So that fits nicely into what I think our mission is, and what we try to accomplish is to make students better and to accelerate their ability to be successful.
Professor, I think not only in Brazil, but in every country, you are always facing the same challenge. That is to take the entrepreneurship to high schools and colleges. This question goes to Ricardo, I think, and you, Professor. I would like to know a little bit more about the Agropolo project that Unicamp and your university, Fresno University, are going to work together. And if you're planning to work with the juniors here at Unicamp on this project, I think it's going to be very important to us. But I'd like to know about you. I think it's going to be interesting for you also. Well, that is the question.
And so for the second point, I think it's a good moment to offer an invitation to offer to Unicamp an intensive course or something like this. We can talk. We don't plan. We don't have nothing in this direction. I think that's just a first moment, a first contact. But I think that we can talk a little bit more about this with Professor Cortez and so on. Okay. And about Agropolo, as I said, it's a project. It's not, of course, that we have a plan or something which Agropolo, it's something that's real, but we are today working to build this place, the physical place. The idea is to create and to build a physical environment to stimulate the networking, okay? Because here in Brazil, it's very common to go to the university to say, oh, the university, it's not possible to work with the industry because the industry don't understand the university, and the university don't understand the industry, and the government don't understand the industry. Or say, we are talking different languages. Okay, we need to find pieces in this puzzle to connect the university, the industry, the government, and to make a fruitful business. To improve the profit, to get more jobs, to get more benefits to the society, and to create an ecosystem that could be more interesting for the people, for the business. So this is the idea. The Agropolo is the connection between these players, these different players. This is the idea, to try to put all of these players on the same table to discuss, to develop a new business, to improve the business, to improve the scientific knowledge, to improve the public policies and so on. So this is the idea of Agropolo. Okay, I don't know if I'm clear, okay? I thank all of you. And when I say that's about agriculture, it's not just agriculture for food, but it's agriculture for health, agriculture for chemicals, agriculture for bioenergy, agriculture for whatever. So this is the idea. So Brazil has good experiences in agriculture. It has a good experience of agriculture for food. We have good experience for agriculture for bioenergy and the other things too. But we are not good to add value, okay? As Professor Timothy said yesterday, it's necessary to add value to our products, of our agricultural products. So it's something that we need to do. Probably we don't know how to do it, but we need to do this. So this is some objectives of the Agropolo, okay? Well, who is funding? And we have, initially, we have a support from FAPESP for this process that we are calling roadmap. The roadmap is a scientific method, a scientific tool to understand the barriers to be overcome in medium term and long term. So what we need to do to go there, to achieve that target. So we have this first. It will be during 2 years. We will have 25 workshops in different areas, in different topics to discuss, to understand our barriers, and to create a map. And this map, you need to put there what we need to do. What we need to do today, tomorrow, and so on. So this is the idea. We have initially 2 years to build, the process and to get a good project. We have some other fundings from Netherlands program called Be Basic Foundation. And we have support from Campinas government, from Tecnopark, from Unicamp, and we have a lot of, not so money, but we have money to start this idea, okay? Could you complement?
Again, run by me what? Again, what?
No,
No,
I'm okay.
okay.
Yeah, I'm good.
Well, I think that at the end, I would like to thank all of you for this time, and especially for the Professor Timothy for the good presentation. And thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you.